Well, all right, it's about time to go ahead and get started. Got Austin back with us again tonight, and thankful to have him to jump in and help out in Larson's absence. But we are in Genesis 22. If you haven't turned there already, you may want to go ahead and turn your Bibles to Genesis 22. So Abraham, one of the first promises that God gave to him was that he was going to have a son in his old age. And we are at that point. 25 years later, he has a son. Lo and behold, he has a son. How old is Abraham when he has a son? 100 years old. That's hard to imagine, but a miraculous event indeed. And we see Abraham being a very deliberate man as he is in following the Lord's commands, and he gives the boy the name that God told him to name him, Isaac. He on the 8th day he is circumcised, just as the Lord had instituted to him, and so the boy grows, and we jump some time pretty quick here, but we get to a story that here this promise is fulfilled that God has made to Abraham, and all the promises, the land, nation, seed, all those hinge upon this son. And then God asked of Abraham the unthinkable: offer your son as an offering, a burnt offering. How does Abraham respond? He does it without a pause, doesn't he? Early the next morning, he saddles up, and him with some servants and the young boy, and they head out to go to the location God has prescribed. And they go to the point to where he's about to commit the act. And it says that the angel of the Lord comes to Abraham, speaks to him, and says, that's it. That's enough. That's all I needed to see. And it says in verse 17, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and as the sand that is on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. I spoke to someone a few weeks ago, and he told me he felt like his viewpoint was sin didn't condemn man to hell, just the rejection of Christ. And as I thought about that, I thought, boy, that's convenient, because what does that do toward obedience of God? It nullifies it. You don't have to be obedient to God as long as you accept Christ into your heart. And that's basically what that philosophy is saying. But here we see that God was testing Abraham. Will you obey me? Will you obey my voice? And Abraham did. He passed the test. So Abraham and the lad return and come back to Beersheba, and that's basically where we left off last time. Is there anything that anyone would like to add in way of review?
Not only does it show that he obeyed God, but he didn't love Isaac more than he loved serving.
Good point. His heart was fixed on serving God more than any other thing. That's a challenge. That's a hard challenge, because we establish deep roots within our families, within our loved ones, and sometimes loved ones can challenge us. Especially sometimes our children can certainly challenge us. And children may want to go another direction. Where are we going to go with that? Are we going to keep the course with God, or are we going to kind of soften and maybe even support our children in them leaving the path? It's a difficult thing, very difficult thing. But Abraham was a man of faith, father of faith, And this is why, God, we saw that God chose Abraham, that he would instruct his children and his grandchildren and, his offspring after him. He would leave that kind of influence. He was that kind of influential person. So, this is a man for all of us to admire and look up to. Mm-hmm.
Said that his sin was that he honored his sons more than God.
Yeah. Amanda made note contrasting Abraham with Eli, the priest, where he honored his sons more than he did God, and so he was struck because of that. So, very notable contrast there. Austin, you got anything? Okay, well we'll pick up in verse 20 of Genesis 22. Just a few verses here to close out the chapter, but it's convenient because this story is really going to give us maybe a head start into a story we're going to cover tonight. Verse 20. Now after these things it was told to Abraham, behold, Milcah has also borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz, his firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kezid, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Moreover, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. And so it seems a little bit abstract to see this, included in chapter 22. But as I said, as we get into chapter 24, we're going to see where this really ties in and connects. But Abraham's brother has children as well, and what we're going to see line up is Isaac and Rebekah, which Abraham and Sarah, of course, have Isaac in their old age. So Rebekah's going to line up as a grandchild to Nahor, whereas Isaac is a son of Abraham. So, a little bit of distance there along the line there, but they do line up in age, and we'll see them pair up. Anything you want to add to that?
No, like I said, the significance of this is going to come, I think, later on, but it's just, I think, gives background as to why Abraham does what he does later on, because he now knows of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's aware of this information, and this makes it easier to pursue Isaac a wife. Any thoughts? All right.
So let's look at chapter 23. I'm going to read all the way through this because I don't feel like there's maybe a great stopping place. Maybe there's a couple places we could, but I think it goes better all together. All right. So Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah, and Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and a foreigner among you. Give me the property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land, and he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, of all who went in the gate of the city, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field. I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land, And he said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, "But if you will, hear me. I give the price of the field. Accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there." Ephron answered Abraham, "My lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead." Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron and Machpelah, which is to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites before all who went in the gate of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were made over to Abraham as property for the burying place by the Hittites. All right, so there's a surprising amount of detail here, right? A lot of back and forth, like talking about this person said this person in front of these people, right? A lot of details. But what's maybe the big thing that leads off this section? Sarah's death, right? So Sarah dies. Why is that? I guess why is that kind of a big thing?
Well, she's the mother of his descendant line, Isaac.
Yes. So the promise is coming through her, right? And also, we've been following Abraham and Sarah for quite a while now, right? I mean, this is in some ways kind of the beginning of the end of this part of the story. So you have her dying. How does Abraham react to this?
Well,
Yeah, he mourns over her, right? Do we expect anything different here? No. I mean, he obviously cared for Sarah. We see that throughout. And here you see he's very upset. So what does he want to do?
he wants to buy a burial site for the family so that all that is dead, even Sarah, could be buried in there. And I think the argument that goes back and forth between them, they want to give it to him, but Abraham knows that throughout all the history of that area, I mean, they even took the well that he dug that he had to buy back, but he hadn't bought it in the first place. So I think that Abraham looked, hey, I don't want my wife's body desecrated, so I'm going to purchase this land so it's known throughout the whole area, hey, this is Abraham's burial site, and it won't be no argument of somebody else coming in and taking over. That's what I believe is happening.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And what's interesting about this is that when you have this back and forth, I'm going to kind of make this kind of brief. Basically, what you have is Abraham wants to buy the field. They keep insisting, no, we'll give it to you. And he keeps insisting, no, I'm going to buy it. And then what eventually happens? He ends up buying it, right? Okay. Now, does he buy? Actually, I need to take that back. He did not want to buy the field. He just wanted to buy the cave, right? Mm-hmm. But what ends up happening?
Well, the whole land.
He buys the whole land, right? Everything that's in it. So I do need to mention that. What's interesting about the story is that I think there are probably different ways maybe we could interpret this. So I would say, just reading this at first glance, why does it seem the people want to, give him the land?
Well, he has great possessions, and he's so very high. He's powerful.
Yeah, it seems powerful. Also, they talk about him being a prince of God, right?
Verse 6.
The idea maybe that he's also righteous and he's done well by other people, right? So he's powerful. He seems to be a good guy. To me, it seems like it's almost a sign of respect, right, at first reading. So I decided to look this up because, the internet has so many answers. And I came away, obviously, more confused. So I heard someone talk about maybe there are cultural differences here. And maybe the idea is that these people are rejecting Abraham's offer of payment because if he was able to pay for the land, that would mean that he's now kind of one of them. It would give him some type of stature among the people. and they don't want to do that, so they're just going to give him the cave. So kind of like what Steve was saying, right? Like he doesn't really own it, right? They're just kind of giving him that area, so he's not like a permanent resident or figure there. And then you have Abraham saying, no, I do want to pay for this because I don't want it later on taken from me, right? I don't know, all right? I don't know exactly what happens here as far as that goes, or like why it happens that way. Whether it's purely out of respect or maybe there's ulterior motives and we just don't understand that because that's not part of our culture. I don't know, but either way, what you have is you have a burial place for Sarah. Maybe we should mention this. Where is this burial place? Maybe generally speaking. H-E-N? I don't know if mine has that. Yeah, mine says, I have Hebrew, but I don't know. Like mine says Machpelah, but I don't know. Maybe there are different ways, different names for that too. Yeah, but you have a permanent, maybe I should say more of a concrete place in Canaan, right? You have this kind of thing. It's maybe important to remember where this is at, just because it may, if we get to it, it may come up later, right? But you have a certain place. This belongs to Abraham. He has a place where he can lay Sarah, his wife, and then mourn her. Any questions or thoughts about that?
You know, it seems throughout biblical history, they didn't typically bury people like we do. You know, they put them in tombs. And, you know, that may have been limited to some degree. And here, this provided a suitable site for that. But of course, you know, Abraham's got to be thinking about, you know, his family's going to be established here. And, you know, I think he's probably looking further than just Sarah, but, you know, himself and, you know, perhaps his children or servants or whoever else, you know, may be buried here. But it's interesting to me, this character, this Ephron, the negotiation back and forth. And no. Then he puts a price on it, does he not? You know, he kind of does it in a, you know, offhanded way, but, you know, he does put a price on it.
It's like, well, if you insist, then I guess.
Or, you know, if we were going to, you know, if I were going to sell it for, let's just throw a number out there, is how seems like he presents it. So Abraham, he jumps on it. You know.
Now, speaking of that, I don't know how accurate this is, but I looked up 400 shekels of silver to see what that would be in today's money. There are different numbers, obviously, but it's somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 that he spent, it seems, to purchase all of this. So
sizable investment.
Yeah.
And we will see Abraham will be buried here, as well as Isaac and so on and so forth. I think even Joseph's bones are returned here, are they not?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Eventually.
I've not made it there yet.
I'm just speaking off. You know, I haven't. I didn't look at it. I just kind of thought of it last minute, but. So interesting. Now they have a burial plot, and you know, it's, of course, this land is ultimately going to be given to Abraham's children after him, but in the meantime, he does have a solid, and, you know, like Steve said, you know, nothing else can be done with that land by anyone else. It can't be taken. People can't change their minds and say, you know, you need to go to another location. Right. You know, we're not doing that here anymore. So
yeah, that's a good point too. Is that this was done in the presence of everybody there,
witnesses,
right? And so it's not as if it was just an agreement between him and Ephron. And it's like, well, he didn't actually pay me. It's like everybody knows. So.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to chapter 24. I think I'm going to read the first 9 verses. It says, Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, Put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac. Servant said to him, Perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? Abraham said to him, See that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, To your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. So Abraham is aged, and his time is limited, and as most fathers are, concerned about his son. And at this point in time, I forget. It tells, I think, at the end of the chapter how old Isaac is. 40. Yeah. So he's in adulthood, and so Abraham wants to give Isaac a wife, but here you see again what is on Abraham's mind and how serious he is about spiritual things, because I'm sure there were women in abundance there in the land of Canaan, but why does he not want those women for his
women
son?
that may want to be part of his family too.
Sure.
Because of his reputation.
Sure. Yeah, the influence of these people. These people don't share, the same things that Abraham, the same values that Abraham have. This is a land full of paganism, and these people are, knee deep in it. So Abraham doesn't want to risk getting mingled in with that. So, of course, that story back in the end of chapter 22 starts ringing more loudly here. He has kin that has children now, and so he has his servant come to him, and this putting his hand under the thigh. That's interesting. We're going to see that throughout Scripture many times, being oaths being carried out that way. I think David does the same thing late in his life, and it may have been with Solomon. I'm not sure. Again, I'm just recalling off the top of my head. I didn't research it, but regardless, this is a cultural thing that will carry on throughout much of Scripture. And so he wants a servant to go out and back to his kindred, back to his homeland, and to find his son a wife. And of course, he asked several questions. One of them, well, what if she refuses? Well, then you're cleared of your oath. You're no longer obligated. Yeah, certainly. So the servant has the instruction. He's made the oath, and now it's time for him to go to his kindred, to Abraham's kindred, and to find Isaac a wife.
So you mentioned, like, what if she doesn't want to come? But the other concern he has too is, what if they want Isaac to go over there?
Right.
And Abraham's pretty, straightforward, adamant. That's the word I was looking for. It's pretty adamant about, like, no, he does not need to leave. Right, this is our land. I think something that's interesting here. So I think I worded it a certain way. He wants Isaac, even though he's going to be in the land, he doesn't want him to be of the land, right? And so that's why he doesn't want him marrying a woman from the land, right? Because he doesn't want him to be influenced by the people that are there. Maybe there are some reasons for this other than just his own wisdom. Like, he's probably heard at this point what's happened with Lot and his family. He maybe has understood why that happened, right? Maybe there are influences there, and he's like, I don't want that to happen to my son, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he wants him to be in the land, right? He wants him to be in the land of Canaan. This is our land. But he doesn't want him to be like the people in the land, right? And I think that's a good thing for us, right? We are in the world, but not of the world, right? I think that's just kind of an interesting idea that Abraham already has that wisdom, and he's trying to put that into action for his son.
Very good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be certainly become a family burial plot. Anything else?
All right. So let's pick up there in verse 10. Uh, let's read through verse 21. I like that ending place, so we'll end there. All right. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let your jar down, that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels, let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled up her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please give me a little water to drink from your jar. She said, drink, my lord. And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water, and she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. All right, so you have him make this trip, right? So the servant's going. Again, we see Abraham's servants being obedient. So he goes. What does he take with him? 10 camels. That's going to be important in a second, right?
Plus, it says that there's articles that he took, so whatever treasures that he thought that might need to have for the wife, he would have them there with the camel.
That's right. And that's going to play a part in a little bit too, right? So we have him taking all these things, which, you know, is going to be a lot to keep up with, right? When he gets there, he makes a petition to God. Now, here's what I'm going to ask. What does he ask God for first? Okay, yeah. So that's a really good answer. I was going to say success, right? Success, and then you said kindness. I think it said steadfast love, or I don't remember how it worded it, but it was something like that, right? Give me success for the sake of Abraham, right? Again, I think that shows the respect and the love that Abraham's servants had for him. We've seen this all throughout. Their obedience to him, their willingness to go through things that would not be fun to go through. They do it for him, right? And I think, again, we see the care that a servant has for Abraham here. So that's the first request. Please grant success on my mission for Abraham's sake. What's the second request?
That the woman would come to where he was at, and that he would know when he asked for water, she would give it to him, and he'd know that she's the one that God has chosen. The other thing that I see from that is Abraham had taught his servant to the point that if you need something, don't try to figure it out yourself. Ask God's help. That's what he does.
That's a good point. So, like, you see this servant several times. Like, we haven't gotten to one of those times yet, but you see him at least 2 times. One of the first things we see him do is he goes to God. And that's a good point. So, again, maybe the influence of Abraham here on his servants. But going back to what you said, he asked for a sign, right? He's like, let it be the woman who draws water for me, and then we'll draw water not only for me, but my 10 camels, right? Now, I know I've heard the figures on this before, but I don't remember. Camels drink a lot of water, right? So 10 camels are going to drink even like 10 times as much water. Yeah, there you go. I put my master's, that's what I learned. But what you have going on there is something that well, let me ask this. Would this be a miraculous event?
Not just be busy on her on bringing forth water, because I believe that the camels will actually hold anywhere from 10 to 15 gallons of water a camel.
Well, there you go. It's not like the world flooded, right? It's not something that's just going to be like this supernatural thing that's happening. It's kind of ordinary, but still, does it seem likely?
No.
It does not seem likely to me, right? So even though it's not miraculous or supernatural, it doesn't seem likely. And yet, what do we see? It happened when? Like, yeah, like as he's still thinking these things, right? It happens. And it's like, wow, that's an answer, right? But then I ended in verse 21. What is he thinking in verse 21? Yeah, well, yeah, and mine says he's gazing at her in silence to figure it out. Like,
Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah,
He's
it's like,
amazed.
did this really just happen? Like as I'm thinking this, did this really just happen? I think that's maybe something for us to learn as well. Many times we ask God for things when they happen, and maybe happen exactly the way we think. I think we wonder is like, was that already kind of going to happen, or did God maybe push this in a certain direction? Regardless, we're going to see this servant's response to this in a second. I think our response should be very similar to this. But it's just interesting when we leave off, he's just looking at this like with his mouth open, like, wow, this is pretty crazy.
I was just looking up on my phone. There was a statement Bob made about a rider that took camels a day's journey, and they would drink 5 gallons of water after a day's, and I think this was quite a bit more than just a day's journey here. So regardless, 10 camels, 50 gallons, so I don't know. This does maybe somewhat, I don't know if it lends itself to a miraculous event, but boy, who is going to volunteer, especially a woman?
Yeah.
I mean, I know hospitality is of prime importance in this day and culture, but that's going a little bit above and beyond the call of duty, not just for the man, but for his livestock as well.
And maybe one thing we should focus on too, because I didn't say anything about this. What does this tell us? We don't know her name yet. What does this tell us about Rebecca? Maybe several things.
She's a hospitable
Yeah.
woman.
She's a hospitable woman.
She wants to take care of visitors to
Mhm.
her land and even their animals. And so that's good character.
Yeah. She's a tough woman. So would she fit in with Abraham's family, you think? Are they pretty hospitable, looking out for, I mean,
Mhm.
seems like she's going to fit in, right? She's got some characteristics that seem to be good already.
Well, I noticed something, I don't know if that's right or not, Rebecca and Isaac are first cousins.
Yep.
Yes. I don't know the first and seconds and everything. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Maybe seconds. Second cousin. I don't know.
I
But
don't know how.
I mean, Abraham and Sarah were half brother and sister, so.
If Larson was here, he could tell you because he's tried to explain it to me before.
Well, you actually take the genealogy all the way back to Abraham. I mean, you started out with 2 people. So when the sons actually took a wife, I mean, they actually took their sister or one of their brother's kids.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there for a long time of the generations, I mean, the families were closely bonded together because, I mean, you're talking about 2 people.
Right. And Nahor took Milcah, which was his brother's daughter. So that would have been his niece. So, yeah, their family tree may look more like a power pole.
But that just goes to show you that God didn't have an issue.
Right.
That close of kin
Right. Not at this point in time.
married at this point in time.
Yeah. Was somebody else going to say something over here a while ago? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, that gets overlooked, but boy, that's, yeah, she's really putting herself out there on this occasion to do this. And certainly the servant is taken back that this is playing out just as he had asked God that it would. I mean, to the letter. All right, let's continue on in verse 22. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels, and said, "Please tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." She added, "We have plenty of both straw and fodder and room to spend the night." The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord and said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman." Then the young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the spring. As soon as he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, he heard the words of Rebekah, his sister. "Thus the man spoke to me." He went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, "Come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels." So the man came to the house and unharnessed the camels and gave straw and fodder to the camels. And there was water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him to eat. But he said, "I will not eat until I have said what I have to say." We'll stop right there for a second. So here, of course, he is taken back at this event, but we see him inquire the young girl who you are. He's wanting to make sure. Let's make sure. I don't want to get too excited about this situation, but who are you? And it couldn't be any more perfect. She is the right one. She is exactly the right one that the servant's looking for. So he puts bracelets on her and a ring and all this. And of course, Laban, her brother, comes out and sees. And, we kind of, as we were talking about the hospitality thing and being maybe, somewhat like Abraham was, here this family seems to have that trait about them, because Laban comes out immediately. And, I don't necessarily think that the gold and whatnot was, lend itself toward that, but he was, he took care of the livestock, the camels and everything. And, they even take him in and wash his feet. And of course it was a customary thing, but still, this is a complete stranger, and they board him up. So, this family seems to have that hospitality trait well in hand.
It also says too, we took that it was a servant and his camels, but it says that when they, 32, about they washed his feet and the men's feet that were with him. So
Servants, yeah.
So he had servants with him,
Yeah.
herding the 10 camels or leading them
Mm-hmm.
to the well. So I have caught that before in reading that there were other men that was with the lead servant that he had sent out on this quest.
Yeah, this is certainly a team of people. You see, I mean, this is a pretty large venture. This is a very serious venture for Abraham. This isn't something that they're haphazardly, going out and pursuing. This is a very deliberate and venture that Abraham is looking for the right woman for Isaac, and he's sparing no expense on this occasion.
I was gonna say, it seemed like he had 10 camels, because he had 10 camels worth of stuff to take.
Yeah.
You wouldn't send one guy to guard all that stuff.
No, I'm sure there's lots of raiders and whatnot out there would be happy to unload your camels for you. You got anything you want to?
Just maybe 2 small points. First, going back, Steve said this earlier, character of the servant. He realizes his prayer's been answered, and he immediately blesses God for it, right?
Mhm.
He doesn't forget. He doesn't just like, all right, let's go. Let me go about my business. He blesses God. The second thing has to do with servant again. Did we leave off in 33? I just want to make sure I'm right.
Yes.
Okay. So in 33, they're like, all right, let's sit down and enjoy a meal together. What does he say?
Mm.
Now I'm here. I'm on a mission, right? That's going to play into the next section. So I'm actually not going to read a lot of the next section because it's a lot of rehashing of what we just talked about, right? The main things I think are different are toward the beginning, he kind of gives a little bit of background about who his master is. It's Abraham. Here's what Abraham's done. Here's kind of like his history. Again, we've already kind of gone through that, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that. He also talks about how when he arrived, he petitioned God, his prayer's been answered. What I do want to point out is at the very end of his kind of retelling the story. You look at verse 49. In verse 49, again, I think this goes back to what his attitude is right now. He says, now then, if you're going to show steadfast love and faithfulness to my master, tell me. And if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left. So he says, look, this is why I'm here. Tell me, right? Yes or no? Again, what we see is he's got business on his mind. He's got a job he's got to do, and he's here to do it, right? Again, I think maybe this is, I don't know, I hope we're not attributing too much to Abraham, but when we look at Abraham, when he was given a job to do, he did it, right? And that was the main thing that was on his mind. I think that's kind of interesting here. All right, so do y'all have anything I want to say about any of that section before I start in verse 50? Yeah, he's led me by the right way. Mine says by the right way, but way of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we see he believes he's been influenced by Abraham. All right, so let's start in verse 50. So it says, then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you good or bad. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. When Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord. And the servant brought out jewelry of silver and of gold and garments and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave her brother, or to her brother and to her mother, costly ornaments. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. When they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. Her brother and her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. After that she may go. But he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. And they said, let us call the young woman and ask her. And they called Rebekah, and she said to her, will you go with this man? She said, I will go. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and their nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate you. Then Rebekah and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way. So is it okay if I stop there?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So again, I don't have a whole lot to point out here other than what's the family's response?
They said that, they was going against God, but they also said, better stay here for a little while, 10 days, and then she could go. And he said, nope, she's got to go now because God has sent me, and you agreed this is from God to do. She must go now.
Yeah. So initially what you see is they have a respect for, if this is God's will, then what are we going to do, right? So they say yes. And then like you said, what you have happening is the servant gets ready to leave. By the way, when does he get ready to leave? Who does that sound like?
Abraham.
Abraham. I mean, like, again, we see maybe influence here. Like you said, the family's like, well, not yet, right? Give us some time. And again, what does he say? He's like, no, I got a job to do. Like, I got to do my job, right?
He's made an oath.
Yes, that's right. Made a note. He's like, I'm going to do this and carry it through. So he's got that single-mindedness on this, going to accomplish the task. And then they let him. And they blessed Rebecca as well.
I think that would be like a reasonable thing, because they may never see her again,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bargain with the servant, I'm just saying, you can see why the family would ask that.
Hmm. Yeah, 10 days seems to be a reasonable time to say your farewells and whatnot, like you said, in these days and time. Whether they ever saw Rebecca again is in question. Okay, let's finish up here in verse 62. Now Isaac had returned from Beer Leroy and was dwelling in Negeb. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. And Rebekah lifted her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself, and the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, so Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So, this is kind of paints a pretty nice love story here, wraps up the story nicely here. The veil thing, from what I understand, that would have been, what women do, chaste women, at the time, sense of modesty and whatnot. But we see Isaac take her, and he has no reservations in taking her as his wife, and they become husband and wife, and of course that helps with being comforted over his mother's death. So yeah, it kind of wraps up a nice little bow here on this story, and now Isaac is a man that is on his way of fulfilling these promises that God has made to Abraham, and now it's going to be passed down to Isaac as well.
Sarah's tent, so she's the new baby.
Good point. Yeah, Amanda said that since this happened in Sarah's tent, Rebecca would become the new matriarch of the family at this point. Anything anyone wants to add before we close out?
What I said about the cousins, I know the Lord was behind all of this, and this is the first time I ever noticed. This is about the fourth time we've called.
Yeah. How many times we cover the Bible story, and every time you find new things that you didn't pick up before. Only God's word would have that kind of depth. Well, all right, we'll pick up with chapter 25, Lord willing, Sunday night. Thank you for your good attention.
Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.